Hi, you're watching Yoga with AJ, and today we're going to practice the pigeon pose, also known as Eka Pada Rajakapotasana, the one-legged pigeon pose. We'll be practicing a basic variation and a little more challenging one. I'll be showing you the pose and then breaking it down for you step by step. But first, a few precautions. If you've had knee injuries or any complaints or injuries in the lower back, only practice under guided supervision. So we're going to do a few quick movements, poses to warm up these places. So we'll come to the butterfly and gently flap the butterfly's wings, moving and waking up the hip socket, the inner thighs. If you feel that this is uncomfortable for you, you can keep the legs a little away from your body. Make sure you are sitting on your sitting bones and not rolled back. So you're sitting up straight and flapping the butterfly's wings. Don't do it too fast and try to keep the hip joint relaxed as you do it. So doing that for a few breaths, and then we move on to warming up our backs. So stretching the legs out, giving them a little shake, and we're going to go from the plank pose all the way down, stretch forward, come to a small baby cobra, round the back and sit back. Just waking up the back. Let's try that one more time. Move to plank, slowly lower yourself down, stretch up and round the back in active child's pose. So let's do that a little slower with our breath. Come to plank, take a nice deep inhale. Exhale, bring the knees down, lower the body. Inhale and stretch up, press the toes forward, toenails side down. Exhale, round the back. Let's try that one last time. Come to plank. Draw the navel into the spine. Inhale. Exhale, bring the knees down, lower yourself all the way down. Press forward with your toes and turn the toes over. Inhale and look up. Exhale, round the back. Sit back in child's pose. And then waking up the hip flexors, step the right leg forward. If you're happy here, stay here. Or you can stretch the leg further back, opening up the hip flexor and stretching it a wee bit. So stay here for a few moments, making sure your hips are nice and straight, flush ahead. Bring the fingertips down. If you can, bring one palm down. If it's possible, both palms. Otherwise, stay higher. Look up gently if your neck allows you. Take a few deep breaths. And slowly rock back, rock forward, rock back, rock forward, rock back, rock forward. Pick up the back leg, step back, bring the knees down again. Bring the other leg in front, the left leg. And you can choose to stay right here or stretch back a little bit more depending on how open your hips are. Make sure both the hips are square, facing towards the front. Make sure you're not compressing your lower back to come up here. Keep the stomach engaged. Inhale. As you exhale, release. Either bring the fingertips, one palm or both palms down. Inhale again, look up. You can stay higher if you like. Staying there for 2 more breaths. And slowly coming up, rounding the back and then rock. Slowly rocking, straightening the front leg and then the back leg. So we're waking up the muscles and the back of the thigh as well. And we're ready to go to the pigeon pose. Few important things to remember when you're getting into the pigeon. If you've had a knee injury, you're going to need support. So just be careful and hold on for a moment. You're going to need either a yoga block or maybe rolled up blankets or a cushion underneath your hip, the hip of the leg that is in front. So keep that ready. You might need or you might not need it, depending on how your hips are positioned and how open your hips are. So the openness of the hip you can make out when you take the hips out. Basically this, with the angle of the leg, is the kind of position that you'll be in pigeon. So if you get any strain in your knees while going into that position with your leg, you want to ease off and have something ready underneath your hip. So we'll start from downward facing dog. Walk the right leg forward, bring the knee down onto the mat, close to your hands, and then just slide back with the other leg. So you want to make sure the underside, that's the front thigh, is down towards the floor and the other hip is resting on the floor without being lopsided. So if you feel you're losing your balance on any one side, you need to immediately put something underneath, and you need to make sure that both hips are square. So both hips facing the front. If you get any pressure in your knee while your leg is in this position as well, just back off and put something underneath your hip so that you can relax. Take a deep breath in. Now, depending on how open your lower back and your hip flexors are, you will be either able to sit up straight without straining your back, or you may feel like you want to sit forward, and that's fine. So there is a muscle that connects from your hip up into your spine. It's called the psoas muscle. If this muscle is tight and your lower back is also tight and your hips are tight, then you will not be able to sit up straight without straining your back. So don't do that. Stay at the front, inhale. As you exhale, slowly fold forward. Check if there are any sharp sensations in your knee. You shouldn't be feeling any. Lower yourself a little more. And you're really going to start feeling your hip, your right hip opening up. Slowly walk the hands forward. Inhale again. And exhale. Release the forehead down without being heavy on the forehead. Try to relax the shoulders and try not to let the hips go sideways or out. Try to have both hips facing in the same direction. And you can stay in the pose for 10 to 15 breaths or 5 breaths if that's all that your hip allows you. It's a very relaxing pose. It's very good for the lower back as long as you're not putting pressure there. Inhale and come up. And remove the support if you have any. Bring your hands close to your knee again. Curl the left toe under. Pick up the knee. And see if you can step the leg back. Come back to down facing dog. And bring the leg to the front. The left leg this time. Stretch the right leg back. So depending on how open your hip is, unless you've worked on it, usually the hip doesn't open up that well. But some people are naturally flexible. If your hip is very open, you'll be able to place the leg in an L shape without straining your back. And you'll still be able to fold forward without any pressure on your lower back, in your hip, or without falling sideways. So depending on how open your hip is, adjust the leg. The knee and the hip are aligned. And remember, the right leg, the straight leg, is facing with the hip down so that you're leveling out both the hips. Inhale and look up. Exhale, slowly fold forward. This is a variation without support. If you need support, make sure you have a blanket or a block underneath your left hip. Stay for a few breaths. Anything between 5 to 15 breaths depending on how relaxed you are in the posture. Try to breathe well. You'll feel your stomach gently pressing against your thigh. Inhale to slowly come up. Curl that toe under. If you're comfortable here, you can sit here. If you're able to sit up, but you shouldn't be feeling any strain in your back. Pick the leg up, go to downward facing dog, and then slowly lower your knees down to the floor. Rest in child's pose, releasing your lower back fully. So we're going to try another variation of the pigeon where the back leg is extended. And if you feel you can't reach all the way to your foot and the leg feels really tight, then you're going to use a belt or a towel, something to loop around your foot, so keep that handy. So moving back to down facing dog and stepping the right leg forward again. Stretch the left leg back. Remember, if you need your support, use it under your hip so that your hips are square and you don't have any pressure in your knee. You shouldn't be feeling any sharp or tight sensations in your knee. So we're going to extend the back leg, and for some of us that may not happen. So this may not happen yet. Don't force the leg, just relax in pigeon again. For those of us who are able to pick the leg up, you make a small loop around your foot with whatever you want to stretch it with. You can have it on your ankle and stretch the leg back, or you can have it a little higher against the toes. And if you can get it that high, slowly draw in and see if you can stretch to the front. This requires a lot of openness in the hip flexor at the front and the hip on the side. So make sure you're not overly stretching or injuring yourself in order to get into the pose. Make sure you breathe as you go in there. Inhale. If you need to lean forward, lean forward. Lean a little forward and allow yourself to stretch. You'll feel the front thigh stretching as well. Keep breathing there and slowly release the leg. So in the unassisted variation of the pose, if you have the openness in your hips, your hip flexor, your lower back and your shoulder, you'll be able to draw the leg all the way up. Hold on to the big toe. Relax the shoulder, allow it to open. Rotate the shoulder in its socket and go all the way up. But in order to do that, you need to have openness in the shoulder, the back, the hip flexor and the other hip as well. Coming back, stretching to the front and stepping the left leg back in front again. Try whichever variation of the pigeon you like, either supporting the hips, so both the hips are square, or down on the floor. Inhale, exhale to fold forward. Or if you're able to reach with a belt or your foot, draw the back leg up, hold on. And perhaps you can just be here, stretch to the front. Take a few deep breaths there. Slowly releasing the leg, lifting up, coming back to down facing dog. Bring your knees down and rest again in child's pose with your hands either ahead, if you're comfortable there, or stretched by your feet. Allow the lower back to relax completely. So that was the one-legged king pigeon pose, Eka Pada Rajakapotasana. It's excellent for opening up the hip joints, preparing your body for back bends and advanced seated poses like the Lotus Padmasana. Keep watching Yoga with AJ, stay connected to yourself, and remember to subscribe to the channel Mind, Body, Soul.